cuffs are off, man. Get right. Too many left in these leagues, but I ain't gonna leave. I'ma get right. Get right. Down to the bottom and scratch it for all the...
Hey everybody, Adam Rank here.
What's up everybody? It's Marcus Grant.
This is AJ Dillon of the Green Bay Packers.
I gotta give a shout out to y'all at Get Right Fantasy.
If you are not subscribed, what are you waiting for? You want to lose your league?
Our league. Check out the Get Right Fantasy Network.
You got to get right with the Get Right Fantasy Network.
Best of luck with your podcast. Appreciate the support.
And you're tuned in to watch my boys at Get Right Fantasy Network. Get you right. Enjoy the show.
But I tune in every Friday. Strategies provided, I will lock in every way. So go and roll your sleeves up. Yeah, go roll your sleeves up. And I'm getting down, cause I roll my sleeves up. And I'm getting right, cause I roll my sleeves.
What up? What up? What up, world? We are back. I'm Anthony, aka Rasta, and this is Get Right Fantasy Network. Week 11 is done, and we are on to Cincinnati. We're on week 12, ladies and gentlemen. Pretty excited. Had a pretty good week here myself. Ended up going 12-6 over my 18 leagues that I'm in. And last week was my best week actually of the year. I went 14-4. But we do have the big time by NATO coming up here in week 12. So we'll help you navigate through this one, see, who there might be out there that you can pick up and spot start here basically to kind of get you through. And some of us might need to win big time here this week in week 12. So it's going to be super important. So I'm going to help you through that here tonight. Shout out to my boy Frank. Of course, it looks, you see here, it's just me tonight. So I will be solo. Frank's not feeling too well. I'm kind of getting over my thing from last week. That's why we didn't have our show last Wednesday. You guys saw me battle through here with Phil on Friday, but we're back here, man, heading into week 12. So let's get into it, man. There's a lot of stuff going on. We just got done watching the Texans kind of beat up a little bit on the Cowboys here, 34-10. Obviously, team is just, kind of a little bit in shambles there. So we'll see what ends up happening here. They're talking about Trey Lance, here at the end. So it'd be interesting. Of course, you see the hat here, wondering if he might get some run. It would suck to see him do well and become kind of a franchise guy over there for the Cowboys after what we spent on him as a first round pick. But, we're okay with Purdy. Got us to a Super Bowl. So, you can't hate too bad. But yeah, man, they're just, a beat up team. Cowboys kind of feel like some of my fantasy teams just totally beat up and nothing you can really do about it, but you go out and you fight every week. And that's probably the best I'm going to say about Cowboys that you guys will probably hear me say, but can't beat someone while they're down. You want to beat up on teams when they're at their best and they think they're good, but they definitely got to hit the reset button here. So we'll see what happens. Texans on the other hand looking good. It was nice to see Nico Collins come back. He had a nice game. Obviously the Joe Mixon game, 3 touchdowns, 160 something yards, 63 yards or something like that on the ground. So didn't really need to do much else in this one. Defensive touchdown as well too by the Texans. Daniel Hunter, nice pickup for them, of course, in the off season. It was kind of close there for a little bit, but they jumped on them in the second half. Monday Night Football. So that was it. So if you guys have any questions or anything, you can drop them in the chat. I will be taking your live Q&A questions as we go. Otherwise, just some things I do want to mention, just kind of recapping Sunday. I'd be remiss if you didn't talk about Taysom Hill, the number one fantasy scorer here this week, scoring 41 points in a lot of formats, more in your tight end premium and, other leagues. But he did a little bit of it all. I was happy to have him in my home leagues. I picked him up. I had McBride in one league on a bye, so I was able to pick Taysom Hill up. And in another league, I got the heebie-jeebies about Ferguson. Wasn't feeling comfortable about Ingram either. And so I went out and just grabbed Taysom Hill. And threw him in the lineup, and it was a nice spot start for me there too. So I was happy to take those leagues down. So shout out to all those that had Taysom Hill in your lineups. He is, let's see, looks like he was started by only 26% of people. I was one of those, but I did have him in the bench in a couple other places as well too. So definitely tough to see that. The boys in Detroit putting up a 50 burger, 52 points to 6 against the Jags. They just kind of laid it on them. Amon Ra, the second highest scoring player in fantasy this week with 38.7 points. He went a little nuts. So that was definitely nice to see there for those Amon Ra owners. 11 catches, 161 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Again, 38.7 points. Jared Goff, is up there at 30, almost 40 points, depending on 6 or 4 point passing touchdown leagues. And really everybody there. Gibbs, Monty had 2 touchdowns. Jameson Williams got in on the action. He was a top 20 player. So Lions just really put it on him over there. Brock Bowers had himself a day, 13 catches, 126 yards, and a touchdown. Breece Hall, I think that buy window pretty much closed at this point. He put up 78 and a touchdown, and then 7 catches, 43 and another touchdown in the air, 31.1 points in full PPR. So his price definitely is up now. If you want to try to acquire him, you have Burrow, Higgins returning. That connection was nice, 9 for 148 and a touchdown. And then you had Jamar Chase, a lot more efficient, 7 for 75, but 2 touchdowns. And they're just a threat there. So nice to see that coming together. And they ended up getting the loss, unfortunately, but it was a nice fantasy day. And then you had guys kind of on the fringe here. Jerry Jeudy had himself a nice day. Puka Nacua. Juwan Jennings playing the X role over there. He was looking nice. So again, these are guys, of course, Jeudy, Puka. I mean, Puka's on teams, but Jeudy only 68% owned on Sleeper. Juwan Jennings, I believe he's higher. Where is he at? I think I have that here. Juwan Jennings. He's at 76, so he's not quite a waiver wire guy, but still almost 25% leagues that are out there that don't have him owned. So I feel like he's a top 15 type guy here on the top offense. Of course, with McCaffrey back, he's the prototypical X. He's basically what Ayuk was supposed to be. So, he's on that high end to low end one that can return 1 numbers any week. We've seen that multiple times now with him and Purdy. So I like that. So I'll end it there. Of course, week 11, it was a good one. Again, a lot of points scored, it seemed like overall, in a lot of leagues I was in. And a week 12 by NATO. Coming up here. So we do have 6 teams on bye. It's going to be Atlanta, Buffalo, Cincinnati, Jacksonville, New Orleans, and the New York Jets. So a lot of guys there, of course, Buffalo, Cincy, even New Orleans, again, Brees is out. The Atlanta guys, Pitts, London, who did okay against Pat Surtain over there. The team itself kind of got ran off, and that's a whole other story. But yeah, Cousins, Bijan, we're going to have to find guys for all this. So replacements here. So we'll kind of get into that. We'll go over some injury news and updates as well too. So that'll be fun. But before I do, for anyone who is new here to the channel, make sure you go hit that subscribe button for us. Hit that like button if you're watching here. If you have any questions or comments, you could drop them in the live chat, or if you're watching later on, you could throw them in the comment section of the video, and we will respond there. Of course, you can go in the description and hit us up directly on Twitter or Sleeper as well too. That information's there. But we are live with you basically here 7 days a week now. I know there's only a couple ones here, but we do have an added Saturday show now. But Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, you do have the quote unquote main show doing waiver wires like tonight. Wednesdays, we do trade talk and roster management. Fridays, we have 2 shows for you doing start sit for those East Coast folks and West Coast folks or late night people. We're here with you basically for 4 or 5 hours, taking your live questions on all of our live shows. On Tuesdays, you'll see we have our boy Tycoon in the fantasy boardroom at usually about 7 p.m. Then on Wednesdays, we have Phil Ruskin with the extra point coming in at 6 o'clock. He does his dynasty trades and player outlooks. And on Wednesdays, he's doing his prop bets and DFS on Thursdays. So make sure you check that out. And then on Sundays we do actives and actives. You have Classic Mike and Kindle from the Fantasy Football Tavern in there on Fridays for the early one, and then Phil and myself for the PM show. I mean, I guess they're both PM shows, but the later part 2 show there as well too. And then the Sweet Life with Jack and Cody live on Saturdays. That's a mouthful there, but we have it out there for you guys. Just hit that like and subscribe, turn those notifications on when we go live, and we'll be there, man. So there we go. Jason Ortiz in the house saying improved to 9-2 and 7-4. So let's go. There we go. He says needs a tight end waiver since Jake Fergie most likely out with concussion. So we'll definitely get into some of those guys here tonight. But quickly, of course, look for someone like Taysom Hill, even though he'll be on a bye week. That's what's going to be the tough thing about him. We'll talk about it a little later. But there's a few other guys, Jonnu Smith, some guys like that. Will Disley, only 29% owned on Sleeper, that you might be able to look for out there, Jason. So we'll definitely get into that. So stay tuned. And I'll go into a little more detail here. Let me get the banner back on. So without any further ado, let me just get into some quick updates here. Of course, our news and notes here are brought to you from our boys over at underdogfantasy.com. So just quickly here, they're just a best and easiest place to play fantasy sports. They have their best ball drafts where it's no waivers, no trades, no light up setting. And then of course they get down into their daily pick'ems, which I enjoy as well too. You just pick higher or lower on player props. This week you'll even get a free one when you sign up using that promo code GetRight for Jameis Winston up until Thursday night. So again, just use that promo code GetRight. Go download Underdog app in your app store and come join us. It'll be a lot of fun. Love playing on Underdog over there. All right, so let's get back into those news and notes here. So just quickly, we saw and heard about Dak Prescott. He's officially going on IR, placed on season-ending IR today, dealing with that hamstring injury. You have the Giants make the announcement that they're benching Daniel Jones. They'll be going with Tommy DeVito as their new starting quarterback here. So we'll see how that goes this week coming out of their bye. They announced that. Looks like regarding the availability of Chiefs running back Isaiah Pacheco coming off of that, what was it, fractured fibula, kind of broken ankle, so to speak. Coach Reed says we'll just have to see how they do in practice. There's a report that came out earlier this weekend saying that he should be healthy. It'll just be a matter of if the coaches want to make him active or not. So we'll see what happens. Hunt didn't have a great day, so we'll see how they potentially ease him in. But we may be getting him back to our fantasy lineups. At least we have a couple more weeks. Those of us Pacheco owners. So it'll be interesting to see how they work him in and what that split could potentially be there. And we'll see if he'll be playable here in the fantasy playoffs. So, of course, stay tuned for that. And then on just some weird news, I wanted to throw this in there, but just so everybody knows, the Ravens are not looking to bring in a kicking competition for Justin Tucker. We saw him miss a few field goals today or yesterday, which caused, of course, Baltimore to lay one down. So, they're saying he still is the best option. He just needs to get back on point. So unusual misses there from what you would think would be a Hall of Famer. But yeah, they lose by 2 points to Pittsburgh, 16-18. And again, a couple missed field goals and I believe an extra point as well too. So that was tough to see. All right, so just getting to some other injuries here. We had Tajay Spears leave the game with a concussion. He did not return. He is in the concussion protocol. We did have the Raiders running back Alexander Madison. He was ruled out with an ankle injury and did not return. So did Zamir White. He was dealing with the quad injury. They left fairly back-to-back from one another, which left Amir Abdullah as basically the only remaining healthy back to come in and finish off the game there. We'll see what happens. But like we said, that offense, the only person I'm really looking to start in that offense, of course, is going to be Bowers. That's pretty much it. Maybe looking elsewhere. I know some people like Myers, but I don't want a piece of that offense if I don't have to. We have a Panthers head coach David Canales come out saying he fully expects Jonathan Brooks to play on Sunday, and QB Bryce Young will continue to start versus the Chiefs. So Brooks gets to come back and face the number one rushing defense for his rushing debut. But we did see James Cook get 2 rushing touchdowns against them when the Bills finally put an L on the Chiefs record. So no undefeated teams remain. So yeah, Jonathan Brooks, those of us who've been stashing him there, of course, we've seen Chuba Hubbard, get paid basically. So we'll see, if they're trying to, again, we keep hearing they're trying to recreate what Detroit has done over there. So we'll see what happens with Brooks and Chuba Hubbard. We did see the Packers activate running back Marshawn Lloyd off the injured reserve. Remember, he was the number 2 running back before getting injured earlier in the season. He came back briefly and then went on IR again. So he's coming back off. We've seen Wilson, kind of push for some touches early, but then it's basically been the Josh Jacobs show from then on out. But we'll see what happens here. If Lloyd is the type of playmaker that he could potentially be, and see if he could earn some touches here in this backfield, or if it's going to stay the Josh Jacobs show. But again, a running back this late in the fantasy season might be worth a look to pick up, just to have in case anything were to happen and he does get that job. Maybe you can get out ahead of it. But of course, with the 2 by NATOs coming up, might be hard to keep someone like him. So just maybe kind of keep your eyes out. Don't pick him up early. Might tip some other people off. Maybe you could just kind of keep him there if no one gets him off this waiver run, kind of get through your bye weeks, and then maybe stash him heading into the playoffs. If you're a Josh Jacobs owner and you have the spot, I would recommend maybe potentially grabbing him as well, especially if somebody else does have Wilson. With that said, we did, interestingly enough, Doug Peterson, still the Jags head coach, thought he might have been fired after that 52-6 shellacking that they got. Says that wide receiver Gabe Davis, who went out with a knee injury, they confirmed today it was a meniscus tear and he will miss the rest of the season, that he will have surgery. They'll determine if it's a repair or just a trim, but either way, that will cost him at least the fantasy season, but most likely the rest of this entire season. We did have Falcons wide receiver Darnell Mooney. He left the game in the third quarter with a hamstring injury and did not return. They're saying, though, today it's not considered very serious. They are headed into their week 12 bye, and the feeling is he will be ready by week 13 when they come back to play the Chargers. So just we'll keep our eyes on that. Probably won't get anything this week, but next week might be, telling how he starts practice next Wednesday. So, of course, we'll keep you updated on that. We had Viking head coach Kevin O'Connell. He confirmed that all it was is leg cramps for Jordan Addison. He only played about 60% of the snaps, was kind of battling through it all game long, finally left in the fourth quarter, and he did not return. Again, came out and just said it was just cramps, nothing else more serious. So he'll should be fine to go against the Bears division game this week and week 12. We did have 49ers tight end George Kittle, who was ruled out this last week, yesterday, dealing with that hamstring injury. He's expected to practice on Wednesday. Shanahan said he was pretty close to playing. So maybe they just kind of held him out of precaution, not to do anything more serious. Probably thought they could win the game against Seattle. And then, see if they can get through it and give him a little extra rest time. So obviously that did not happen. So we'll see what happens when Kittle comes back on Wednesday. So we'll keep our eyes and ears open for that. So with that said, Joe says, with Taysom Hill on a bye and Ferguson concussed, which tight end should I grab from the trashy Disley, Likely, or Noah Gray? Noah Gray having the 2 touchdowns this week, likely comes back from injury. Basically, kind of takes over, it seems like, for Andrews when we were just giving Andrews all the praises. But I like what I saw there with Disley. He has a decent floor. I think he's scored at least 4 or 5 PPR points in almost every game that he's played through. Excuse me. Like I said, I'm still getting over a little cough. But so I kind of like what I saw there from Disley. So that's probably who I would lean. You can't trust Noah Gary in that. Likely, maybe but I think the safest bet there would be Disley in half PPR. So yeah, so that's where I'd go with that. And of course, I'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to our waiver tight ends. So without any further ado, let's talk the top quarterback waiver ads by position. Again, if you have any questions, you can drop them down in the chat and I'll get to them as we go. Especially with no one here with me tonight, I'll just kind of throw them in as we can. But let's get to it. So my quarterback ads here for week 12. The first guy I have to put out there is going to be Bo Nix. Played against Atlanta here this week. 33 attempts, 28 completions for 307 yards and 4 touchdowns. Lights up that Arizona secondary. Adds, what was it? 2 carries for only 5 yards. So didn't really even do too much on the ground. It was with his arm, over 300 yards passing. I believe that was his first 300-yard game. Came close with 284 against Carolina. But yeah, they just put it on Atlanta this week. So liked what I seen from him. I wish I would have went with him over Russell Wilson. Interestingly enough, in one league, and this thing that sucked is it was one of those like tinker with your lineups. Last minute, I had Goff in there, and I was just like, we're talking about it on Friday night. I was like, I think it's going to be a Monty and Gibbs type game. And so I thought, with Baltimore, even with the defense, the way they had been playing, I thought it would be more of a shootout, and swapped out Goff for Russ. Luckily, I still picked up the win because I did pick up Taysom Hill in that league. So I still got the W, but yeah, hopefully it doesn't come down to points because that sucked. But anyway, reason I have Bo Nix as my number 1 quarterback also is he does his schedule coming up. He does get Las Vegas. He does get Cleveland after that. The shootout with Jameis should be pretty interesting there, and that will be at home in Denver. Then he's part of the week 14 bye, which is probably the only bad thing about it. But when he comes back for your fantasy playoffs, he's going to have Indy at home and then at the Chargers and at Cincy. And so those could be, 2 potential shootout games as well. And again, 1 divisional game. And last time he played the Chargers, he had 33 attempts, only had 19 completions, but went 216 for 2 touchdowns and a pick, but had 61 yards on the ground on 6 rushes. So, then I'll be playing at Cincy, at Cincy after that for your championship. So again, if you need a quarterback to potentially ride into the fantasy playoffs, he could be someone, at least if you're not looking to start him, someone you could have to stash just in case something were to happen. We all remember last year, Justin Herbert getting hurt in the 9th hour, and Joe Flacco is the one that, and Baker Mayfield actually are the 2 that I rode to championships, my 2 teams that I had Herbert go down. So having that backup quarterback could be important heading into the playoffs. So make sure you get that taken care of. So let's Neanderthal. So it was Neanderthal who I was playing with when I was talking about it, that Russell Wilson team. So swapped out Russell Wilson at the 9th hour for Jared Goff. Total dunce move. But in the same tinker, picked up Taysom Hill and threw him in there. So yeah. Oh no, I think it was my Lamar team that Neanderthal succumbed to, but it was a good battle, 140 to 135 or something like that, 145 to 130, 35. So it was a good one. That's a standard league scoring, 1 QB. Appreciate you, Jerry. Thanks for coming out, brother. We got Willie Snyder in here saying Broncos number 1. So there we go. So yeah, man, I'm a fan. He could get the rookie of the year, man, if he finishes strong like that too. So we'll see what happens. All right, so my number 2 quarterback is going to be Russell Wilson, although he did have that dead of a game. Baltimore, they were able to take away that deep ball. These 2 teams, have a lot of history together. The only time, they kind of play bad one another, just turned into a big time field goal fest, which Neanderthal had Boswell, and the way our kicker scoring was, he scored like 40 points against me. So that was even crazier. But again, with that said, Russell Wilson, I'm going to kind of ignore it. He had 28, 15, and then 24, and then comes out with this 6-point game against Cleveland. But he does get at Cleveland next against Jameis. That should be, a nice game there. Again, at Cincy, another shootout. Cincy again, or I'm sorry, Cleveland again. And then in the playoffs, he has Philly, Baltimore, Kansas City. So that's a little tough. But if you need someone for your week 12 and week 14, 2 games against Cleveland should be pretty nice. So go check it out. What up, Ravens? How's it going, man? Glad to have you here. I appreciate you, my guy. I don't even know who is getting chopped in the guillotine league this week. I haven't looked yet, so it'll be interesting when we get off here. Got 2 guys, Neanderthal and Ravens, who are both in that league. We got Willie saying I flexed MVS and got lucky with the 70-yard touchdown. Did the Browns even tackle? Exactly, right? So yeah, that was against New Orleans, who'd been playing terrible, and they put up a ton of points. So yeah, I'm gonna go find me some matchups against New Orleans. So if Derek Carr and a bunch of nobodies can do that against Cleveland's defense, and Newsome and what's his name got a little banged up too, I think Ward. So yeah, it could be even more interesting. So and they play actually Thursday night, so quick turnaround. All right, so who else do we got here? Other quarterback waiver wire ads for this week. Geno Smith gets Arizona here in week 12. If you're looking for someone in week 12, he could be a potential move. I believe was leading kind of the league in passing yards. Didn't have the greatest game against San Francisco. I mean, it is us, but yeah, I mean, he did beat us. I only scored 15 points here in a 6-point, 32 attempts, 25 completions, 221, but didn't score the touchdown. So, if he throws touchdowns with that, he's at least just one. He's already over 20 points. You put 2 in there, he's in closer to 30. So yeah, Geno, Arizona at the Jets, at Arizona. And playoff is home against Green Bay, home against Minnesota, and at Chicago might be the tough one. But those could be good matchups weeks 15 and 16 for you. Or again, especially considering 12 and 14, both games against Arizona, division games, West Coast. Worst case, you're dealing with some rain this week, week 12. Otherwise, you're in the Dome in Arizona, week 14. So that's someone I would check out. The other guy you have to take a look at here, man, he seems to be dealing kind of every other game. Maybe that's just the product of being 36 years old, but that's going to be Matt Stafford. He get only 18 completions, but on 27 attempts, but throws for 295 and 4 touchdowns on the day against New England. His week 12 matchup is home against Philly, and so in a dome, at New Orleans in a dome, home against Buffalo, week 14 in a dome. Then he gets at San Francisco, so maybe some rain, at New York, which could be potential snow, and then home against Arizona, week 17 in a potential shootout. So again, he could be somebody that you can look for as well. Take a quick water break here and see what we got going on. All right, so yeah, if you guys questions or comments, drop them in the chat. I'll just try to get to them old school here, like we used to as I'm talking, since it's just me. There we go. Okay, so Neanderthal said not him or Raven. So Neanderthal, I know you were worried there for a minute, so glad I don't have to chop you, man. Next year, or maybe potentially next week, we'll do you in. We'll see. But congratulations, you guys, for advancing in that guillotine league. It's getting real fun. I think we're down to what, just seven folks now. So that's going to be good. Let's see. Senator said, what's the deal with Kittle? Showed up. He was out Sunday morning. Yeah. So he popped up with the hamstring injury. He was kind of questionable heading into the game. And then they did rule him out. I think we talked about it during the Sunday morning show. That he was leaning towards being out. As you know, people that have been dealing with the hamstrings, they've been erring on the side of caution for the most part. So I know, and I think I only have Kittle in like 2 places, but I went in and swapped him out there. So hopefully you got Hill in there. So that'd be good. Let's see. CXL34 says, need to pick up a wide receiver this week. His choices are Jameson Williams, Pittman, Quentin Johnson, and Waddle. So Pittman and Waddle are out of the question for me. It's between Jameson Williams and Quentin Johnston. As far as matchups this week, Detroit gets the Colts, so I'm probably going to lean that way. We do have the Chargers Monday against the Ravens. That could be interesting as well. The way that secondary could potentially be beat deep with Justin Herbert's arm talent. I think I'm going to lean. It's really tough between JMO and Quentin Johnston. I think I'm going to go Jameson Williams, but I could see how you could go either way. I mean, Jameson obviously has to deal with Amon-Ra and the potential, rushing touchdowns, with Gibbs and all that. Whereas Quentin Johnston's basically scored a touchdown, I think, almost every game. So, so last 3 games he scored a touchdown. And then he gets Baltimore. They've given out the most points allowed to fantasy wide receivers at Atlanta after that. But I think I might go Quentin Johnston there, interestingly enough. But I'd probably go Williams if it were me. But I had to throw QJ in the lineup this week. So I did. And I was happy with it. I was happy. So let's see. Ravens saying he's 10-1. So shout out to Ravens. I think that's in the is it the Got Left League? I think this is the Got Left League. Got Left Out League. All right. Do you like Stafford or Darnold this week? 6-point QB touchdowns. Not sure exactly. I'm going to have them ranked this week. So make sure you tune in on Friday for sure. But I can tell you right now, it'll be Rams, Eagles, or Vikings, Bears. I'm probably going to lean Stafford against the Eagles. I'm going to stay away from that Chicago defense. So I'm going to like Stafford just more out of the gate here this week in 6 point. All right. Snyder said he had Dalton on a bye, so he picked up Hunter Henry. He did good. 10 and 5. So he was actually someone I have here to talk about when we get to tight ends as well. Raven said no, it's in the Tournament of Champions, Best Ball, and the GOT League with you and Rasta. Okay, that's it. So those are the 2 leagues. The GOT left. He said, I got St. Brown as well too, but he appreciates it though. Okay, good stuff there, man. Good stuff. If you have Amon-Ra already, man, that might be actually easier to lean QJ then. Maybe diversify just a little bit. Don't put all your eggs in that basket. I mean, obviously they all had themselves a week this week, but they're not going to put up 52 every week. Maybe diversify a bit and get QJ in there against Baltimore. Again, they've been giving up the most. So there you go. Carson says, would you continue to roll with starting Bo Nix over Jaden Daniels this week? I definitely like the matchup with Nix, as I mentioned. So let's see. So you got Nix versus the Raiders this week. So definitely don't mind that. And then let's see, Jaden Daniels, Washington, who they got? They get the Cowboys. Ooh. Yeah. I mean, you saw what Nico kind of just did to them. With the rushing upside that Daniels can do, though. Like you saw CJ Stroud scrambling tonight, and he doesn't even run. He's not a rushing quarterback. Daniels I could see him going 6 for it. He could get anywhere from 60 to 80 yards, if not 100 in this one. If he needed to, depending on how Dallas is going to play. So, I think I'm going to go Jaden Daniels, man. Raven says Jaden Daniels as well, too. But, not too bad, especially you got a guy like that. He's done with those ribs still, so if he takes one shot, you want to have that nice backup there for him. So, I think I'd stick with 2. So there we go. All right. Appreciate it. Hit that like and subscribe button if you haven't already. If you're watching, that'll help us out, man, as we continue to grow, trying to hit the 1,400 subscribers. I think we're only 40 or something away, 30 or 40 away. So help us get there. Appreciate it. And Willie says, I did good with Gesicki a couple weeks. Is he even a good handcuff now? Not with T. Higgins back. Once T. Higgins comes back, Gesicki with his numbers when Higgins is there are non-existent. So, there's plenty of guys you could, you don't want to keep a tight end as a handcuff. So definitely drop him if you need a guy to start. Again, you're looking for, I know Hill's on a bye week, but you're looking for, Disley, I would throw in for a week. a couple of these other guys, Henry, that we'll get to here in a bit. So there we go. All right, so let's do it. Let's move. That's pretty much who I have there for quarterbacks. We shall move on to running backs. So let's talk running back waiver ads here for week 12. The guy I have, I just kind of went in order of rostership percentage. So we'll start here because I don't think there is really a major running back, which again, this is good that there wasn't too many injuries this week, but there was no like major running back injury or some handcuff that we need to go run and spend all our fab on. So these are just guys, again, with it being week 12, and maybe you just need to throw somebody in the lineup because you don't want to, make a crazy trade or, drop anyone else, or maybe you got guys, coming back. But these are people who could potentially be out there that you might need to just throw in, for a spot start if you can. Starting with Jalen, or just a straight up handcuff. So starting with Jalen Warren, he's 56% owned here on Sleeper. He saw 33% of the snaps this last week and had 9 carries for 41 yards, 4 catches on 4 targets for 27 yards. Again, this was against Baltimore, so anytime that they're going to be, in a closer type matchup or even maybe trailing, Warren should get, good run there. They get again Cleveland, Cincinnati, Cleveland coming up. So, again, he could be someone you can throw in there. He's almost flex worthy, like a 3 wide receiver and 2 flex, as a second flex. He's kind of in that range for me. Jordan Mason, his roster percentage has dropped. Again, they went on the bye. Then with CMC coming back, he's down to 54% rostership now. McCaffrey just starting playing again. Like, he could potentially get hurt again. We've seen what he is. He's, he was being ranked as, top 5, top 3, on a week to week potential basis here when he was getting those touches. He's again just a pure spellback, at this point. Maybe he'll do some short yardage stuff here and there. But even on the goal line, that's still going to be CMC's role. But Jordan Mason, I think, is still, especially if you're the CMC owner and you see Jordan Mason was dropped in your league, which almost, again, 46% of leagues, this is available to you, the CMC owner. Go pick up Jordan Mason and make sure you have him handcuffed. So he's someone I'd take a look at. Someone else who may have been dropped here this weekend because he was ruled out, Tank Bigsby, 53% owned. Again, they just got, kind of worked. He was inactive here dealing with this ankle and toe type injury. Oh no, but that's Bucky with the toe. Bigsby here dealing with the injury. So again, they're on a week 12 bye. But when they come back again, ETN didn't look great. He did play, I think, 74% of the snaps with no other, I don't think anybody else did anything there in the backfield, and he had no points. So, if Peterson's still the coach by the time they get back, we'll see what happens if he makes the change or they try to, be a little more physical here with Bigsby. I hate to say it. I hate to see it. I wish ETN was able to produce in that game, but it was just not happening against Detroit. That's a tough defense. And again, they're just in a tough spot, stack boxes, no Trevor Lawrence, no wide receivers. It's just ETN and Ingram basically there. Oh, and BTJ, who actually had a pretty decent game. I think 13.6 points if I remember. I kept seeing 25-yard, completion, 23-yard completion. So at least Mac Jones threw it to BTJ. But anyway, this is about Tank Bigsby. Again, only 53% owned here on Sleeper. So he's definitely worth someone to have. I think on your bench. Now we move on to guys a little less owned or around the same percentage owned. Actually, even more owned. I went a little out of order. This is going to be Audric Estimé. He went from, we all thought he was going to be there. A lot of people blew a lot of their fab on this guy, myself included in a couple of places. Not blew all my fab, but I went and picked him up and started drinking the Kool-Aid for whatever reason. I thought Javonte Williams' time was over, and they pulled a gotcha and ended up being Javonte Williams' game again. Estimé only saw 6 carries. That was only for 16 yards against Atlanta, 2.6 yard average. Did see 3 targets, though, and get 3 catches for 9 yards, which Estimé doesn't. It was his first time even getting a catch in every game in the last 5 weeks that he's played. Hasn't even received a target, and then just gets 3 for 3. So who knows what Sean Payton's doing over there? Sean Payton's starting to become the new Bill Belichick to me, and I just don't want any running back having to do in that offense. So I think that's where I'm going to stand when it comes to Broncos running backs while Sean Payton's there. Another running back you could potentially consider here is going to be Gus Edwards. He's 31% rostered in sleeper leagues. He actually got the first carry of the game. It's still very much the J.K. Dobbins show over there, though, but we know how much they want to run. He only played 16% of the snaps. That was, half the snaps he played percentage that he played last week in Tennessee. Only 6 carries, 27 yards. So, but he's, going to be that handcuff should anything happen to J.K. Dobbins. And, they have a decent schedule coming up. So again, if something were to happen to him, they do get Baltimore and Kansas City 12 and 14 on those binados. So they're not great options there. And then week 16 might be tough against Denver. But 15 and 17 is Tampa Bay and New England. So again, if anything were to happen to JK, he could be someone to keep your eye on, or if you want to stash, if you have an open spot. Next guy here is more of a stash, but has put up double-digit points in the last 2 games on limited touches, not even playing over 30% of the snaps. That's going to be Trey Benson, coming off the bye week here in week 11 for the Arizona Cardinals. He just came off a 10-carry, 62-yard game. Saw 2 targets for 25, 2 targets, 2 catches for 25 yards as well. That was against the Jets, scoring 10.7 fantasy points. And then the week before that against the tough Chicago defense, went 8 for 37, which was a 4.6 yard average, still pretty healthy, found the end zone. So turned that 1 catch on 1 target into 18-yard reception, and turned that into 12.5 points. That's still with Connor leading the backfield here. So you could even say he might be almost flexible in certain situations, especially week 12 and week 14. He will see Seattle in both of those games, as we mentioned, the matchup for Geno against Arizona, and now vice versa. So he could be someone, again, if you're in a pinch and need to throw someone there in a flex spot, there could be worse out there. Maybe you take a stab on Trey Benson. Next guy I'm going to mention here is going to be Justice Hill. He is 29% owned here on Sleeper. We saw an uptick in uptick in usage here, maybe just the type of game it was with all the pressure that was felt. And this is what we talked about in the very beginning of the year when they played the tough defense against Kansas City. We saw him play 54% of the snaps in that type of game. And again, when they played Cincinnati, it was 53%. And so you'll see some of these games when he gets up there, only had 2 carries, but where he did his damage was 7 targets. He only had 4 catches for 28 yards. And I think one of those was one of the that last interception that he threw on a go route. But again, he was running a go route. And had he caught it, he could have had a nice gain on that play. So just something to pay attention to. They do get at Chargers week 12. They do play the Philly in week 13. So that could be a potential flexible week for Justice Hill. They have a week 14 bye, and then coming out of the bye, they get the Giants. Probably more Derrick Henry game. They get the Pittsburgh again, who we just saw that matchup where he put up the 8.1 PPR points. And then at Houston in week 17. And then again, if something were to happen to Henry, the only thing you do have to worry about, of course, is want to keep an eye on Keaton Mitchell's potential usage there too. Just kind of keep an eye on that as he continues to work his way back from an ACL. Another running back here, 27% owned, is going to be Ray Davis of the Buffalo Bills. We saw James Cook, of course, get the 2 touchdowns here against Kansas City. Ray Davis only played 21% of the snaps, but that was up from 14 and 15% against Miami in week 9 and Indy in week 10. He only had 5 carries for 11 yards, so not great, yardage, more a spell back at this point. But the reason why you want to have him is he is a nice handcuff on one of the top offenses here that want to run the ball. And we saw when he did get his opportunity where he got 20 carries, he did it for 97 yards, a 4.85 yard average. Not totally great, but definitely a decent average. Gets 3 carries for 55 yards. It was kind of a little busted reception down there too, but he was there. He's seen targets in a lot of the games he's played as well too. So he can be used in that type of role. And again, we've seen him put up those 18 fantasy points and had another 17-point game against Miami when he had the 2 catches for 70 yards and a touchdown. back in week 9. So Ray Davis, just someone you might want to stash. And then, of course, based on the injury to Madison, you have Zamir White and Amir Abdullah. Zamir White, 24% owned. Amir Abdullah, 0% owned, basically. And so, again, I'm not rushing to go grab these guys. But, again, if you're in a total pinch, I'd probably go with all these other guys first before I'd go to White or Abdullah. But, again, they're there. So if you need them in some of your leagues, deeper leagues, you might need to grab them. So those are the running backs I have. I'll recap it. We have Jalen Warren, Jordan Mason, Tank Bigsby, Audric Estime, Gus Edwards, Trey Benson, Justice Hill, Ray Davis, Zamir White, and Amir Abdullah. All right, so we'll get to a couple questions here. Let me see what we got going on in the chat. Let's see. All in One Show says Goff, Gibbs, Jacobs, Puka, Flowers, Kelsey, Connors, his current lineup. His bench is Ridley, Pollard, Waddle, and Pacheco on IR. Any changes that you'd make for week 12? I mean, I think you have a pretty decent team there. I mean, if you can move on, like if you can maybe package Waddle and Pollard for something, but I'm not sure, you know, who's really doing that. I mean, you do have Pacheco kind of coming back. So maybe you can, you know, turn him and, you know, someone else into something if you think that might be a split more with him and Hunt, or them wanting to kind of ease him in. Because again, they're trying to win a Super Bowl, not your fantasy championship. You know, you're good with, you know, and he's literally your RB4. Like you still have Gibbs and Jacobs and Connor all ahead of him. So unless you're just super paranoid at running back, you could use the high Pacheco potentially coming back, you know, package him with maybe Pollard or Ridley, who's been kind of playing well lately, or having those flashes. So maybe Pacheco and Ridley, and go get yourself, you know, a piece. I'm not sure exactly what piece. You know, that's where you'd have to kind of play around. You want to shoot, you know, higher than, you know, these guys we're talking about here as far as the waiver wire. But, you know, let me see if I can find someone who I'm talking about here that you might be able to get. Like maybe you can go get a Juwan Jennings if someone, you know, needs a potential running back there. Just because again, that's someone just probably picked up, you know, off the waiver wire. Let's see. JSN, maybe Josh Downs. He's been playing pretty well here. Maybe could package those two and get a Chase Brown. I mean, I doubt it. Yeah, we also had a Christian Watson sighting this week. Of course, finally sit him and he goes for 4 for 150. Lad McConkey was, you know, not bad. He went 6 for 123 this last week. Again, with Herbert, you know, playing pretty well. We talked about their playoff matchup. So maybe you can turn, you know, Ridley into McConkey somehow there. I wouldn't mind that. But, you know, if you get Pacheco, you might be able to, you know, get someone else, maybe Pickens and something else. You know, so those would be some of the names that I would kind of take a look at. Yeah, maybe you can get a DK Metcalf. Yeah, maybe shoot like Pacheco and Ridley for DK Metcalf, see if you can make something like that happen. If you had to throw Waddle in there too, or Pollard, I wouldn't mind. Maybe get another piece from him. Kind of even it out, but hope that helps. He said he finally lost to a 6-4 in a 6-game winning streak. Ooh, starting 0-4 and then getting to 6-4. That's nice. But he went 6-5. Sometimes it's kind of good to get that out of your system and then just go on a nice run again. He's hoping to win out to make the playoffs. So hoping for you too, man. I hope that works out. Hopefully some of those you know, names I gave you, you can pull it off. So let me know and keep me in the loop. Raven says, if your trade deadline hasn't passed yet, I'd explore an upgrade from Flowers being your wide receiver too. Yeah. And that's why I was kind of, you know, suggesting some of those people. So well done. We're agreeing. You need a wide receiver. He says he also has Burrow, Higgins, and London, but they're also on a bye. Oh, yeah, and you need to win this week. So Yeah, don't trade any of those guys. You need to have those guys come back and finish your run. But yeah, that's tough. Willie says, I was drinking the Jalen Warren Kool-Aid, and he got lucky with the 11 fantasy points. Yep, there you go. There you go. Riven said, oh, never mind, you're in a great spot. I don't know. I'm still thinking the same thing. I'm like, I'm looking for a little upgrade there at wide receiver. All right, so let's move on here. Let's talk wide receivers. On this one, wide receivers to add here in week 12. We'll power through it here, and then we'll call it a night here since I'm solo. Get another quick drink of water here for you guys. I might have a little musical interlude or something for you. Let me see. There you go. Did that work for you guys? All right. We'll get that turned off. Got a little musical interlude there while I took a little drink. All right, so let's get into some waiver wire ads here for week number 12. We have 3 more games left of our fantasy season, and then we are into playoffs. So let's do it here. Let's talk wide receivers. The first wide receiver I'm going to talk about here, again, I don't actually recommend this duo just because of their schedules, but we have to just kind of mention them. Jerry Jeudy come out with a game this week, 11 targets, 6 catches, 142 yards, and a touchdown, that big touchdown that we saw, that 89-yarder. Pretty sweet way to start off the day. I was kind of trying to decide between Jeudy and someone else in my lineup. Threw Jeudy in there. I was happy I did. He is 68% owned, so just over that 65% threshold, but I have to say it because of his counterpart over there in Cleveland, Elijah Moore. He's coming off an 8-target game, the least in the last 3 games. He went from 12 to 9 to 8, so kind of trending down, if you will. Had 6 catches, though, for 66 yards. Had one of the touchdowns there against New Orleans. And of course, there's Cedric Tillman. I think he missed on a big opportunity, but he only went 3, but had another 8 targets, but only for 47 yards. Didn't get in the end zone in this one. I think his first time since playing with Jameis here. Oh no, he was averaging 1 because he scored the 2 in the 1 game. So finally doesn't score a touchdown here. 7.7 points. But basically and he's 73% owned. But these 3 guys, again, like I mentioned, the reason why I'm kind of staying away from them, I'll let the rest of your guys spin their fab and get them on their team, is because they do get Pittsburgh, again, in this binary, they're playing against Pittsburgh, which seems tough. Then against Denver, Pat Surtain, probably be on Tillman per se. And then just a tough defense overall for the other guys. And then against Pittsburgh again, and then they get Kansas City, if you were to make it through all that, then it might look okay at Cincinnati, and then home against Miami in 16 and 17. But for the most part, that's kind of a tough schedule. So I'd like to steer away from those guys. But again, if you're in a situation and you need someone, they could potentially be out there for you. Other than that, someone else that, like I said, I had to use myself this week was Quentin Johnston. So he's 58% owned here on Sleeper. Had 8 targets, but only had 2 catches, but went for 48, and one of those was a touchdown. So 26-yard touchdown pass to Quentin Johnston. Found him there in the end zone and was able to put up a 12.8 PPR day, which he'll take. So that's 22, 10, and 12 in his last 3 games. Basically, he has 3 games where he hasn't scored double-digit points. That's 6 points in week 1, 2 points against Kansas City. Again, tough defense in week 4, and they were still trying to figure things out by week. And then got hurt in the Denver game, only played 41% of the snaps. So really, where he was playing significant snaps, 70% or more, he's putting up, double-digit points in each one of those games. So, and I even started him in a standard league, so I was happy he scored the touchdown. So it would have been a 4.8, wouldn't have been great in a standard league, but the touchdown definitely helped. So gets Baltimore next, as I mentioned, this week here in week 12. So that's going to be a good matchup. They give up most fantasy points allowed to the wide receiver position. I think they're number 2, actually. And then at Atlanta, tough matchup against Kansas City again, but then it's Tampa Bay in the playoffs. Denver might be tough with Surtain, but then New England in week 17. So not saying he's just like a wide receiver 3, but again, if you get someone hurt or need a spot start, again, weeks 12 and 14, 12 will be good. 14 will be tough against Kansas City, but Quentin Johnson could be someone you're looking to turn to. All right, the next guy on the list here is going to be Panthers' Xavier Legette. So they're just coming off their bye. A lot of times it could be someone who was kind of forgotten. Maybe people dropped him, making room for, to find someone to start or, open up that spot here for this week due to another injury or something. But again, like Xavier Legette, 47% owned on Sleeper. He does get Kansas City here, which we just talked about with, Legette, and they're coming off a loss. Might be a tough matchup, but does get Tampa Bay at Philly, which they're a lot better now against the pass than Dallas, Arizona, and Tampa Bay. So not a tough, playoff schedule, 15, 16, 17, Dallas, Arizona, Tampa Bay. So again, just someone you can stash. And if something were to happen in the playoffs, it's kind of like, well, it's better him than some random person off the waiver wire, 3 weeks from now. So Xavier Legette and maybe Bryce Young have built some things, again, with him being the one with Deontay Johnson out of town now. Could be someone you're looking to get. Again, only 47% owned. All right, next guy we're going to talk about here, wide receiver, is going to be Marquez Valdes-Scantling. Can't believe I'm saying this, but he did it again. 3 catches. He did the most envious thing he can do. 3 catches, 109 yards, and 2 touchdowns on those 3 catches. 87 and a touchdown for 2 of the catches, and then the big 71-yard touchdown as well too. So that's back-to-back games. Just what can you say? So back-to-back games. He's just kind of balling out, I guess you'd say. He's catching the ball. So they are heading in the bye week this week. So maybe you can hold off if you really need to, if you need someone this week. I personally don't know if I can quite get there yet, because as soon as you start him, those 3 targets could be 0 for 3 for a big old 0 in your lineup. That's just tough for me to trust. But after week 12, week 13 against the Rams, then it's the Giants, then it's Washington for week 15, then Green Bay week 16, championship against Las Vegas in week 17. So, if you're going to stash, someone, that potentially could be it. And remember, Derek Carr, revenge game in Las Vegas. It'd be nice to put the nail in that coffin for them. So who knows? Could be some potential out there. So Marquez Valdes-Scantling. All right. Next guy on the list here is 23% owned here on Sleeper. That's going to be Ray McLeod. Just someone to take a look at here. He already pretty much plays a pretty good, snap share ever since week 2. He's basically in the 90s, mid to high 80s as far as snap share. Pretty much with Mooney and London, on the field as well too. So he is getting the playing time. Is usually only seeing about 3 to 4 targets on average. We'll have some spike games to see 7 or 9 targets is the most he's seen in a game this week, with Mooney going down with that injury. He did see 6 targets, had 46 yards, only scored 10.6 points in a full PPR league. But again, this was against Denver, which is a tough matchup. They do have a bye week this week, unfortunately. But again, at 23%, maybe someone there you could stash or wait until next week after these games run. But maybe people kind of forget about him, coming off the bye. But if Mooney's still hurt by that time, which they're saying it's not considered serious and he should be ready to go against the Chargers, but just in case, Ray McLeod could be someone you could look forward to. They do again have the Chargers, then Minnesota, and playoff schedule at Vegas, home against the Giants, and that's 2 home dome games, and then at Washington in week 17, which could be a potential shootout there. So Ray McLeod, 23% owned. All right, someone else coming off a bye week here this week. Tampa Bay Buccaneers is going to be Sterling Shepard, wide receiver, only 17% owned here on Sleeper. With Mike Evans potentially coming back, that could actually open up Sterling Shepard. Maybe he gets to play more the Godwin role, and with my coverage, pulling the coverage and pulling that, safety over, could open up some things underneath. Obviously, with the things that Otten has been doing as well, he's going to command some attention. So maybe that just frees up Sterling Shepard now. Maybe him moving back down in the pecking order to where he should be could actually be what unlocks him to be fantasy relevant here. And again, the reason we're looking at this, why we've been telling people to go buy Mike Evans as well too, is because coming back here in week 12, they get the Giants, then they get Carolina, then they get Vegas, then they get the Chargers, then they get Dallas, and they get Carolina in the championship game. So again, weeks 15 against the Chargers, 16 against Dallas, who we just saw tonight, 2 dome games, and then playing at home in Miami, in Tampa Bay against Carolina, in Florida was what I was trying to say. So you don't have any weather to worry about either. So, worse might be at Giants, here this week. But if you escape that, should be good weather. And again, if you believe in shake and bake, putting up some numbers here, Sterling Shepard could be a big part of that. Only 17% owned, so he should be out there. Take a look. Next guy I'm going to mention here is going to be Nick Westbrook-Akine. What can I say? Scored touchdowns in 5 of the last 6 games. Has put up double-digit fantasy points in 3 of the last 6 games. The other one with basically a 6-point floor in PPR, and that was the game he didn't score a touchdown. And then he's again continued to see his points increase, his targets increase here in the last 3 weeks, seeing almost 4 targets a game on average, 6, 3, and 6. Next up, he gets Houston, then Washington, Jacksonville. Playoff schedule is home against Cincinnati, at Indy, and then at Jacksonville. So not a bad matchup there as well too. If Will Levis could be competent, he did score a 98-yard touchdown, one of the longest touchdown plays of the year so far. So he could potentially be someone here if you need just one of those random spot starts from someone, or your guy goes down. Would be nice to maybe have on your bench, and he is going to be out there for you at only 7% owned on sleeper leagues. So I know it's kind of gross, but sometimes these are the guys that when you have one of those stack teams, you're like, Justin Jefferson only scored me 8 points, and Nick Westbrook-Akine scored 19.7. Like, that stuff happens, and maybe just be that guy. Have Nick Westbrook-Akine on your team this time, and at least keep him out of somebody else's hands, if nonetheless. So there you go. Honorable mention, man, is going to be Ricky Pearsall. He let everybody down here after going 4 catches on 6 targets for 73 and a touchdown, having that big touchdown last week, scoring 17.3 points, coming right back down to earth, showing us his floor of 0 points on 2 targets this week against Seattle, and that was with Kittle out. So you thought if anything, he would have had a good game. I actually put him in over, I think, Addison in one of my leagues, thinking he would do well. I still won, I think, that week, or I still won that league. But it was a bad outcome there in that individual spot. So I don't know if he could be worth a start yet. He is 63% rostered, so he is under our 65%, but I just couldn't put him near the top because a lot of these guys I've mentioned over him so far. If I need to start, here this week. Niners do play at Green Bay this week, week 12. All right, so that's going to wrap up the wide receivers here. I see there's some more comments, so let me get to those, and then we'll finish off with tight ends, which seem to be most of the questions that we had here. And good thing I actually had some tight end stuff because, usually I don't do tight ends. Usually I let Frank do it, but he's not here, so I had to make it happen. All right, so Raven Show said stay hydrated. I had to, man. I had to keep the water going, which I'm going to do again. I won't put on the music this time. Just a quick sip, not a water interlude. But who made the theme song? We had it made by one of our ambassadors. Shout out to Wilson, extraordinaire, ambassador extraordinaire. He got that done for us and created the song. So yeah, it's a specific song here for Get Right Fantasy, man. So it's pretty cool. We had a 291 King Kong in here. What's up? How's it going? So would y'all trade JK and Terry for I assume Puka and James Conner? I would. If that's JK Dobbins and Terry McLaurin for Puka Nacua and James Conner. Oh yeah, he does say Puka right here. Then yes, I would do that for sure. I like that trade very much so. I like the schedules that both of these guys play. They actually kind of they're going to play each other. They're good they both play in domes. I just kind of like everything about it. West Coast teams. So yeah. And a couple people agree with me in there. Trade Pacheco and Pollard for Lamb. Lamb looked a lot better than I thought he was going to look. I know they forced that one ball to him later. I just don't know if it'll be Trey Lance. If we see him, I mean, Cooper Rush seemed to know to kind of throw CeeDee Lamb the ball. So what did he end up with here? I'm trying to stall. So 12 targets, 8 catches for 93 yards, no touchdown, which is going to be your issue here. So if it's full PPR, you'll probably be safe with that. But if not, I mean, you're almost trading for the namesake at that point. Like, that's why I'd almost kind of come down and say, maybe trade for someone else. Or if you do want to take that chance on Lamb, get Lamb and somebody else. Like, can you get Lamb and Braylon Allen or Trey Benson or, someone like that. I mean, unless I assume maybe Pacheco's in your IR spot. So you kind of have to do a 2-for-1 anyway to have a legal lineup. So, I mean, if push came to shove, I mean, maybe Pacheco and Ridley. I mean, I'd rather give running back, wide receiver for Lamb, like, even though your running backs are pretty stacked. Again, that'll just leave you open for more trades later. Like if the Lamb trade doesn't work out, and again, unless you're right on your trade deadline, which you may have mentioned earlier. But yeah, I'd prefer to go the Pacheco and Ridley route, but try to shoot for someone else besides Lamb. I mean, again, 18.6 points isn't bad, and if that's kind of the floor with Rush, I mean, that's not bad. And again, this Houston defense is pretty good. So, I mean, it's not the end of the world. I mean, it's positive, and maybe the Lamb winner would feel like they're selling high right now as well too. So if they're kind of panicked, this was like the perfect game for them to sell. So I could see this deal getting done. It just depends on what your outlook for Lamb, is. I'm not quite sure. The only places I kind of own Lamb right now are in Dynasty. I don't really have him in redraft because I didn't get the number 1 pick anywhere in redraft this year. But a couple places that I have him in Dynasty, I actually sat him this week because I wasn't confident that he was going to put up points. I actually played Pollard over him in a league, which didn't turn out great. I still won, thankfully, in that league. But yeah, it was a tough decision. So I could see the deal getting done. So I think it works. It's just, again, depending on what side you want to be on. Raven said he would do it. So this mini says Stafford or May. Ooh, Stafford or May. That's a little tough there. What is Stafford or May? I already closed out my window here, so let me do Los Angeles Rams schedule. So Matt Stafford schedule week 12 Eagles, week 13 Saints, week 14 Bills, week 15 Niners, week 16 Jets, week 17 Cardinals. Or Drake May for New England. He gets week 12 Dolphins, week 13 Colts, bye week on week 14, part of the bye NATO. Then he comes back and gets playoffs week 15 Arizona, at Buffalo, home against Chargers. I think I'm going with Stafford. I just think that he has a better chance to score more touchdowns. I know May might have a little more floor because of the rushing, but I think I'd go Stafford there. His just arm talent, man. He just when you watch the game, he looks good. So there you go. Raven says Stafford is on a better offense. Ricardo Gutierrez says AR5 versus Detroit or Knicks versus Vegas. That Detroit defense is tough. They might get that game kind of in a shootout, forcing AR to throw, which could open up for a lot of picks. I like Bo Nix against the Raiders this week. So, but shout out to AR5, man. He came out, played well, looked a lot better. But I'd still go Knicks based on what I've seen recently. Because you're just happy if AR5 has a game like Knicks has been having pretty consistently. So, in the matchup should be easy. The only thing I really worry about is of course, what's his face, Max Crosby, but that could actually force Nicks out of the pocket a lot to really up that rushing floor that he could have, or open up, some big plays, because once you kind of break out of the pocket, those Raiders DBs might, lose contain, or, allow someone to get behind him, or, complete passes in front of them on broken plays. So I'm going to go Knicks on that one. And Ravens agree. Stop copying what I'm copying, Ravens. He says Knicks as well. Raven says, I sat Lamb this week too for Monty. Thankfully, it worked to my favor. Yeah, I think that's a lot of us survived sitting Lamb this week if you did. But yeah. Would you trade for Jennings over Lamb? Like, I think Pollard and Ridley could potentially get Jennings, and then you could still take that chance with Pacheco, if that makes sense. You got Pollard dealing with that lingering foot injury. Spears it out, which is nice because you were kind of worried about him coming in and taking some touches. But what is the Tennessee schedule? Let me take a look. Take a look at the Tennessee schedule here. All right, so Tennessee gets at Houston here in week 12. At Commanders, Jacksonville should be easy. Then get at Bengals, at Colts, at Jags again. So I mean, yeah, Pollard's that's a pretty nice schedule as well too. Man, I do like Jennings. It's tough I don't want to like lead you and just make you think, oh, I'm playing, Homer because of the hat I'm wearing right here. In no way, shape, or form do I think Jennings is a better wide receiver than Lamb. I just think Brock Purdy is much better than. We already know he's for sure better than Trey Lance. We actually have proof of that because they were on the same team and he took his job. So if they turn to Lamb, and then I would assume we all assume Purdy's better than Cooper Rush. So I would take the guy that's in a way better offense that's going to score a lot more potential opportunities for touchdowns and just moving the chains and moving, continuing drives and having opportunities. But again, 12 targets, 9 catches, 93 yards. No touchdown, 18 points. Like we'll take that. So it's tough to say, man. So again, just kind of depends on what you're, would you rather go down with the flashy name, in Lamb, or do you want to get him and, and have to deal with watching those Cowboys games, or, at least seeing an offense that's maybe scoring, but maybe everyone else is scoring, Debo and Christian McCaffrey and, everyone else is scoring, George Kittle and not Jennings. Like that could happen too. So I see how it's a tough question, man. It is so tough, but yeah, so CeeDee Lamb, 18.6, and you had Juwan Jennings at 25.1, 10 for 91, and scored the touchdown this week, and that's that's the difference. So 10 catches, yeah, man. I think gosh, it's so hard to say. I think I'd want Jennings over him, and I'd much rather, and because I'd rather have Jennings and Pacheco than Pollard and Ridley. Or I guess it would be if you had to trade Pacheco to get Lamb, it'd probably be Pacheco and Ridley for Lamb. So yeah, I'd rather keep him. So. It says that with Pollard's easy schedule, would you consider keeping or just ride with Gibbs, Jacobson, Connor? I think you're good. Like, again, Pollard or Pacheco are your wide receiver 4, so I don't mind, or I'm sorry, running back 4. So I don't mind trading one of them because they're your 4th and 5th running back. So get value, turn that 5th running back and a bench piece into a starter is what you're trying to do. Right now, you're just trying to determine. You're trying to, squeeze hairs or pick hair, or whatever the term is. You're trying to pick the best of two positives between Jennings and Lamb. So you're literally splitting hairs on those two. So I mean, I think I want to lean Jennings in this one. I don't want to put my fantasy championship faith into Cooper Rush or Trey Lance. I couldn't live with myself. And maybe that's because I am a Niners fan, but it just is what it is. Raven said Jennings using that Ayuk role and he's thriving. It's making him frustrated as a Debo owner. Yeah, Debo's going to get his manufactured touches, so he'll be fine. Debo just has to get in the end zone, and plus he's still real banged up, so I'm sure he'll get worked in more here later. So I mean, he still saw seven targets, but only 4 catches, 22 yards. A lot of some screens, stuff like that. He could take those to the house though. So you got to get some of that yak. So we'll see. All right. So I guess we'll move on here to tight ends and then we'll call it a night. So I'm about an hour 15 here right now. Let me get to this question real quick and we'll go over there. Jennings greater than Ayuk, greater than Debo. He's a biased owner. I guess I would go. He runs better routes. Yeah. I mean, they do. Third and Juwan. He's third and Juwan for a reason. We have Rellin here saying Pollard, Downs, or J-Mo this week at the flex. We just talked about Pollard. His schedule. He has the Texans, so probably a no on Pollard. Downs. Let's see. We go back to week 12. So Colts at Lions. Downs. Lions give up like the third most fantasy points allowed to because they have to throw. That's where they're susceptible. I'm probably going to go Downs. And then you get J-Mo against that. There's just a lot of other mouths. I'd probably go Downs right now. I think I'd have Downs ranked higher, but I'll come back on Friday when we do our start sit. I'm in part 2, which starts at 8 p.m. Pacific. And I'll have done a little more research then, looked at all the matchups and, points allowed and all that kind of good stuff. And I'll have my final rankings done by Friday. So you guys can check out getrightff.com. We have our rankings posted on there as well. We usually post them like Tuesday or Wednesday. I know for sure Friday, Saturday, and Sunday they are Friday evening before the show, after the show, Saturdays and Sundays they're pretty dialed in from there. So there we go. So appreciate that, Rel. Good morning, Out of Rhythm Fantasy. How's it going, man? Good to see you again. All right, so let's get into these last tight end. I think that's where I last got derailed here. I like talking to you guys in the chat, man, so I really appreciate it. I felt like an old school show where we're not just like rushed to get through the content, just kind of taking the questions as they come in, a little more interactive for me versus saving everything to the end. So we'll end here on the tight end waiver wire ads here for the week. We've talked a lot about them. There's what a lot of the questions were about here. But yeah, week 12 tight end waiver ads. Number 1 is going to be Taysom Hill. We talked about it, 40% or 50% owned on Sleeper. It says 49% now here, but I'm pretty sure it was about 50%. Maybe there's some percentage markers in there. But yeah, the only thing is he hasn't on buy, so maybe people started dropping him, which is why that percentage went down a bit. If they have some bye weeks coming up because they have to put their waiver claims in. But yeah, bye week on week 12. So buyer beware, so to speak. You won't get him week 12. But when he comes back, he's going to get the Rams, the Giants, playoff schedule, Washington, at home against Washington in the Dome, at Green Bay. Could be a tough game there in the snow and stuff. But that sounds like a Taysom Hill game all day. And then gets the Raiders at home in the Dome in your fantasy championship. So if I am going to hold on to 2 tight ends, he's definitely a guy I'm looking to hold on to. And because he could be usable here, possibly a tight end one. You see what his potential is. So he should be owned a lot more than 50%. We shouldn't be talking about him anymore. He should be well over that 65% after this waiver run. And that's even with the bye week after scoring 41 points from the tight end position. So you can't just leave that out there. All right. So next guy we're going to talk about here, 56% owned on Sleeper, Jonnu Smith. Is really coming on lately. Played his most snaps, 81% this last game against Las Vegas. Saw his most targets for 8 targets, 6 catches, 101 yards, scored the 2 touchdowns. He's basically getting all like Waddle's stuff. He's a lot bigger target for Tua. I don't know what the timing is going on with him and Waddle. Waddle had the drop last week as well too. But yeah, he's been, coming along here. will give you some double-digit, games here and there. His floor is kind of like 6-7 points as well too. Full PPR, not great, but not too bad. He sees New England here next, then he gets Green Bay, New York Jets, playoff schedules at Houston, home against San Francisco, and then at Cleveland. So he could be viable there. Again, 6 for 8 for 101 and 2 touchdowns. So Jonnu Smith. Next guy on my list is going to be Hunter Henry, coming in at 48% rostered. He's coming off a 9-target game. He has had 2 other games where he's seen 9 or more targets this year, and just recently had an 8-target game and a 6-target game. So he is not shy to the targets. I caught 6 of them for 63 yards. Didn't find the end zone in this one. Has only found the end zone once. But overall, it's still the PP and PPR, the tied in 9 overall, still here, and that's only with 1 touchdown. So you can imagine if you were to just score 1 every other game, if he's in a better offense where they're actually scoring touchdowns, that could really bump his positional ranking up there. But for now, in PPR leagues, you could definitely do worse, and he is definitely available out there at 48%. So Hunter Henry, seems like we talk about him every week. Another guy you could look at here could be Zach Ertz. He is coming off a 7 and 8 target game, has had an 11 target game here this season. That was against Chicago back in week 8. But is coming off 6 catches for 47 yards. He did find the end zone, put up 18.7 fantasy points here this week. And overall, he is the tight end 7, so ahead of Henry by 2 spots. So yeah, he's a wide receiver 1 and pretty much just sitting out on the wire at only 46% owned. So go check him out. The next guy here is going to be a gentleman we talked about a lot at 29% owned is Will Dissly. Of course, a lot of people saw that game, Sunday night. So against Cincinnati, where he went 4 for 6 for the 80 yards and a touchdown. So they're going to see that. He's seen some 6 and 7 target games, had an 8 for 11 game for 81 yards back in week 7 against Arizona. It's just been kind of seeing consistent targets there as they continue to open this offense up. They get Baltimore, Atlanta, Kansas City, and then playoff schedule of Tampa Bay, Denver, New England. So some tough matchups in there. But Kansas City actually gives up the most points to tight end. Same thing with Baltimore; they're up there as well too. So even though it's a tough defense overall, that tight end position is where they're a little vulnerable, and where other fantasy tight ends have been able to put up some numbers. So in those matchups, so Will Dissly could be a hot ad off the waiver wire this week. All right, definitely need to get some water after that. So hopefully some of those guys helped you out there. And let me take this banner off here. So I'll jump in the chat one last time here. So if you guys got questions, we're going to call this thing a night here pretty soon. So let's see. Why did Tyson end up playing? Why did Taysom end up playing? I have him in Dynasty. Is it Tyson? Because there was the Tyson fight, so I don't know if Tyson or if had him in Dynasty. I don't know. Tyson ended up playing. Either way. Arturo Flores says, should I trade Jaden or JJ, as in Justin Jefferson? If it's trade Jaden Daniels for Justin Jefferson, yes, I would make that trade, because there's guys like Bo Nix out there that you can go grab, that I'd rather have, like, whoever your combination is of quarterback with Jaden Daniels and somebody else. But I would if that's a trade for, if it just happens to be a typo, I'm taking it. But if you have Jaden, I would definitely explore options. If you have Justin Jefferson, I'm holding tight on Justin Jefferson. And unless you're trading him for Jamar Chase or, Amon-Ra St. Brown, which you're probably not doing, like, you're not, who else are you trading for? CeeDee Lamb and who else, right? Barkley and someone, like, even still, he's even had a couple dud games. Like, it's going to happen, but JJ will bounce back. And he didn't even have that bad of a game. and he's always been a little bit touchdown deprived. So we'll see. All right. Out of the fantasy sports says May, Caleb Williams, or a 25 QB. Which do you like? I'd probably take my chances with Caleb still. I mean, you want some time to develop, and especially if you're not just trying to push your build out a little longer. I'm probably taking Caleb for that one because and that's tough, I guess. I always assume in Dynasty it's going to be super flex, so if it's one QB, that might be a little different as well too. But for the most part, I think I'd still, I still see the spurts with Caleb, and if that franchise can just be competent and put some, players around them, then they could be good. We've seen the coordinator change now. Like what you see, they still didn't do great. They didn't put up a lot of points. They had a chance to win. But yeah, it just didn't quite happen. So hopefully that just, makes them hungrier and stronger and, playing a little better here. But yeah, I'd go Caleb Williams with that one. But actually, going back with that, check out our boy Phil on Wednesdays when he does the extra point and he goes into his Dynasty stuff too. You can always drop a comment on this video or ask a question on our sleeper chat, which is if you hit the description, it's there as well too. And our boy Kendall from the Fantasy Football Tavern, also one of our Dynasty guys, he will jump all over that and help out with that and give you his input as well too. So yeah, drop us a line and we'll all get involved. Smitty says start 2, Devonta Smith, Evans, and Jennings. To me, I'm going to go, it's pretty easy, Evans and Jennings. So there we go. It's kind of like our Discord, but it's like through Sleeper app, so you don't have to like download a whole other app just to talk to us. Like it's just in Sleeper. So if you go to Sleeper and here, let me see if I can do a quick little promo for you guys. Let's why not? Since we're pretty much done in the chat now, let me share this for you. So it's going to be different when you go on your phone. When you go into your phone, you're going to want to go to like the feeds channel. But on here, if you were to like scroll down, like once you do join, all right, these are all my 18 leagues that I was telling you guys about here. But in here, you'll see it says channels. So it's our private sleeper channel. So you can see here, they have the basic ones, the news, the leagues, the advice. Then I have NFL as a selected one. I'm here in LA. I'm a LeBron fan. Like me or hate me or love me, but it still is. So I get my Lakers alerts there. And then you'll see this one here that says Get Right Fantasy Network. So you can probably search for that if you go through the channels, or you can, again, just go to our description of our YouTube video. And it's the very top link where it says join our private sleeper community. Once you do that, you'll have access here to our thread. So you can just come in here and this says, get right trade questions. You can see this here. And you'll see we just have, a bunch of people, and speaking of Kendall himself. And then, you see myself in there answering questions. This was from 2 days ago. And you see here this Adam saying he appreciates the insights, on his trade, and we're giving him his feedback and stuff there too. So, and look at, you can put all this stuff in here. 2 trade questions. You could see 2 trade questions, 12 team, trade 1, trade 2, any helps or thoughts, and gives your whole roster. So we can go into a lot more detail, right here, and then you can tag us on here, and then we'll all get it, and then we all respond and go back and forth about it. So it's a lot of fun. So make sure you guys get in there, check it out, and make it happen. So there it is. Raven's asking, can he get him on now? Okay, so interesting. Didn't know you could do that. Yeah, man. So this is where, yeah. So we didn't want people to go to our website and go to all these different places. Like we most likely, because we do our mock draft tournament in the off season. So a lot of people find us, through our tournament that we do, where we do mock drafts and you get graded, and there's a whole tournament structure to it. And anyway, we'll talk about that more as we get closer here to the off season. But yeah, this is how we all kind of keep in touch. So it's, basically our Discord. It's free to join, doesn't cost you anything, and you can basically talk to us anytime. So, I mean, we're basically live 7 days a week now. So it's actually not as popping as it used to be, because we used to only be live like 2 or 3 nights a week. So we had a lot of conversations on here, but yeah, this is where, if you need people to join leagues or if we're posting videos and, just questions and stuff like that. So it's all, it's all here. So yeah, come check it out. Get right, Sleeper channel. Also, since we're at it, for those that don't know, we also have a website. So getrightff.com. You can check out our website here, of course, our partners and everything like that. You can see our featured videos. We have our underdog stuff. We actually have items you could buy, Get Right t-shirts and help support the show, coffee mugs and everything but hats. For whatever reason, the vendor doesn't sell hats, but you can get a ton of stuff here that we have for sale. And then you can also ask us a question right here through the chat. This gets emailed to us as well too. So if you do have questions, you can actually go to our website and we'll respond to those as well too. And then I guess we need to update our website a little bit, but we've had guys like Jim Coventry here. We've had Adam Rank on the show. You guys see the opening with Eckler and Marcus Grant and stuff like that. So yeah, and then we just have some recent news, little plug in there. But more importantly, you guys can come here and go right here where it says Rasta's rankings. We have me, Frank, and Mike's rankings up here. And you'll see our rankings for the week. So you'll always pay attention to this last updated right here in the corner, though. Just make sure it's recent. So if you see it here and it doesn't say like recently updated, like for this week. So this was last updated on Friday. So this means I haven't done mine for this week. So make sure you guys check that out. And so, yeah, if you can't get a hold of us or you missed the show when we're live, you can always, come check our rankings here. Or again, if you're not sure or have any questions about our rankings, just pop this up and boom, send us a message right here, type it in, and we'll get back to you. So, yeah, check it all out, man. Check it out. Good stuff. I don't think I've ever promoted that before on the show, so happy to do it. All right. Let's see. Raven Show said on YouTube. All right, let me see what I can do. You've been on here long enough. You've put in your dues here. Ravens, we've talked for hours before on trades and stuff, so I think you've earned your dues here. All right, so let's get to a couple questions. We're at that hour 30 mark. I don't know if my voice could take too much of it, but All in One Show says here, got an offer, Connor for Jennings and Stevenson, but I'm scared, but I'm too stacked at running backs. He doesn't need more. Yeah, and I think I want to keep Jennings soon. If you're already stacked at running back, then yeah, you don't need it. You don't need it. And definitely not Stevenson. So he says he also offered Jennings for Flowers. So are you getting Jennings? So I like the Jennings side of. Do you have Jennings already? Pollard for Jennings. You gotta let me know. Do you have Jennings or are you trying to get Jennings for those guys? There it is. So while you're doing that, let me go over here. Let's see. So yeah, All in One Show. I said yes, I would be receiving Jennings. So yeah, I don't want to pay Connor for Jennings. I don't want to keep Connor. And yeah, you don't need Stevenson back. So I'd say no to that one. I would trade Flowers for Jennings. I would make that move. I mean, Baltimore's they don't even need to throw it like 18, 20 times a game. Like, they're not really throwing it. And Lamar's not as efficient as Purdy per se. And if he does, he's spreading it out. He's throws his Isaiah Likely. Again, they just traded for Deontay as well too. Justice Hill, we've seen getting, a ton of targets, as I mentioned during the show. Jennings for Flowers, I would make that trade. I would take Jennings for Flowers. I would trade Flowers away to get Jennings. That's right, because you do have that one. So yeah, so definitely do that one. All right, good stuff. What else do we have here? I think that's almost it, guys. Let me just do one more thing here. So yeah, if you guys put in your 10,000 watch hours, Ravens, helping us out with our watch hours. Let's see. Would you rather trade Flowers or Pollard for him? I think I would rather. I mean, if you need more depth at, like, if you want to keep Flowers and just move him down the pecking order because of your stackness of running backs, I think this is the team where you said you had Pollard and Pacheco on. I almost would want to go. I think I almost want to go. Man, would you rather trade Pacheco for Jennings? I feel like you can get more for Pacheco than Jennings, but I think Jennings is better than Flowers rest of the season. So Pollard has a really good schedule, but we're talking about your RB4s and 5s. Honestly, since he's your RB4 or 5, I would go with Pollard. But I mean, I wouldn't mind just trading Flowers for Jennings straight up. And then you could still use Pollard or Pacheco to get another wide receiver for additional depth, maybe better than Flowers even. So that's what I would do. There you go. Arturo Flores says Justin Jefferson for Lamar and JSN. I mean, at least you're getting Lamar, who's the QB1 overall. But if we're doing a redraft draft, you're still taking Justin Jefferson ahead of Lamar. Like maybe Lamar's second round if you were to redraft right now, but you're still taking JJ ahead of him. I like JSN, but Lockett is still there. He's not hurt or anything, although he liked his usage with DK coming back. So I think he's up and coming. I wouldn't just completely say, oh, he's Justin Jefferson replacement level yet. So I don't think I quite do that yet. I still think I would stick with Justin Jefferson. I would start to consider it if you start to get like to Lamar and like maybe like Higgins or Lamar and like maybe Puka and Lamar or that's a little tougher. Like maybe Tyreek Hill, if the Tyreek Hill owner after him having a game still thinks he's selling high, Tyreek Hill and Lamar. Like I'd want someone at that level for the season. Let's see, points per game. Yeah, I mean, I guess he's up there. Technically, points per game, Jackson Smith and Jacob has more points per game than Puka. Mike Evans and Lamar, someone like that, man. Debo, nah, Debo's not enough. His wide receivers will be Pickens and Neighbors. Yeah. Is it 4-point or 6-point passing touchdown too? Because that makes a little bit of a difference, but I still think JJ can score what Lamar can score any given week. I mean, I guess if you're upgrading that second spot, but like I'd rather have like Bo Nix and Justin Jefferson than Lamar and Jason, if that makes sense, or someone like that. So yeah, I think to me, Justin Jefferson's untradeable. Like he's one of the top 3 or 4 picks in fantasy. Like there's only 3 or 4 people you would trade up for to get him. So if you're drafting today, like who you going to take ahead of him? And those are the only people I would take for trade for him, really. Because if not, he can win you weeks just by himself, man. So Yeah, I can't do it. I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. I mean, he's wide receiver 7 overall in points per game. The only ones beating him: T. Higgins, Amon-Ra, Nico Collins, Chris Godwin, who's not playing, Cooper Kupp, who's actually number 2 in points per game, but he's only played 6 games, and then Jamar Chase. So the ones that have played as many games as him, Amon-Ra and Jamar Chase, are the only 2 ahead of him in points per game that have played basically the same amount of games as him. Lamb, Neighbors, Rashee Rice, AJ Brown, Garrett Wilson, Dwan Jennings. That's all behind. So yeah, no, I can't do it. I can't do it. All right. Yeah, I love JJ too, man. I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't do it. Higgins for Smith. Higgins is on his bye. What about acquiring Devonta Smith for Zay? Oh, that's tough. Smith, you would ask me a couple weeks ago, I would say get Devonta Smith, but even with them playing so well lately, like Devonta Smith is like unheard of. Plus Goddard's back now. Historically, he hasn't done great with Goddard in the lineup. If AJ Brown goes down, though, we know he could be a number 1. But yeah, Zay, it's so hit or miss. I think there's potentially more floor consistency with Devonta Smith, and probably a little more upside with Devonta Smith if he catches the right game. We just haven't seen it lately, which is a little unique. But I would have easily said Devonta Smith over Zay Jones, preseason and up until like a couple weeks ago. So I don't think I would mind. I would probably take that chance. But if you're talking about getting Jennings or Devonta Smith, I think I want Jennings over Devonta Smith right now. So, yeah. Higgins for Smith. Higgins on a bye this weekend. Smith already had his bye. No, I'm not trading away Higgins for Smith. I'll deal with the bye week. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. And even Chase Brown's still eating on the ground too, though. They just can't air it out. So, yeah. All right, good stuff. All right, so we're all caught up in there. Good questions. That was good stuff, making me think there. So that was really good stuff. We'll be back here on Wednesday to talk more trades, talk roster management. Again, sorry I missed last week, but I was under the weather. You guys probably still hear it in my voice here a little bit, my sniffles and my coughs. But trying to be here for you guys as consistently as we can be. But for the most part, we're putting stuff out 7 days a week. And like I said, I went through that little tutorial. So rewind back. You guys can see how to get a hold of us all the time. And Ravens for show in here could vouch and tell you that he can tell you that I'll talk to you all day about trades off the stream. So, he'll let you know that, I will go ahead and do that for you guys. So make sure you, again, check us out. Here, let me throw the banner up one more time here for you guys. So you could pause that, take a look again to find out when we are live here. And yeah, let me clear this out. So other than that, what else is there to say? Week 11's done. Hopefully you guys are in a spot. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of us, we're on the edge of our seat with every win and every loss. Like you lose and it's like, oh my God, I'm out of the playoffs. What do I do? And you get a win and it's like, all right, one more week. You held some other people off and maybe gained a spot or moved ahead on points, or maybe you won and still moved down a spot in the rankings because you didn't score as much as you wanted to. But whatever it is, man, make sure you come here and enjoy it and share it with us. We'll help you get your lineups right and get everything right here to hopefully bring home those championships for you. So that's what we're here striving for. So again, if you need anything, just let me know. Again, you know how to get a hold of us. So from all of us here, man, from my boy Frank, hope you're feeling better, my guy. He's probably knocked out right now. From the rest of the Get Right crew, for Classic Mike, for Dustin, for Kendall, for my boy Phil, for Tycoon. You'll see him here tomorrow night, hopefully. And you could call me Professor Rasta, I guess, if you want. I don't know about all that. I'm just a degenerate, man. I just like talking fantasy football, man. So hope you guys enjoyed it. Again, hit that like and subscribe button for us. Unless there's anything else, I have, which I don't think I have for you guys. I'm going to call it a night right here. So again, good luck to you guys here heading into week 12. And we'll be back here on Wednesday. Peace out.
Wanted to white fantasy is the play. Marking nothing but I tune every Friday. Strategies provided.